Yeah. Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Ayy. Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize. Every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock. Localize every time. Can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top two and we not too plugged in daily digital.
We are going stick mic. Shout out to everyone in the chat. It is the Locker Room #1 source for Texans digital content. It is draft week and it is showtime. We heard from DeMeco Ryans, we heard from Will Anderson, and we heard from CJ Stroud today, and they answered a lot of the questions that we've been discussing in here. And I look forward to hearing what they had to say. I also want to talk about a trade that I believe the Texans should entertain involving a very, very significant position of need and someone that they've been connected to for a long time, depending on who you ask. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Cademan Smith says 72 hours, so he's already counting down. Superstream will be on S&L. But let's hop right into this. We talked about this the other day with DeMeco Ryans. We know about the swarm mindset. We know about the swarm mentality. We know about right kind of guys, culture, all that type of stuff. We also know that these are 20, 21, 22, 23-year-old kids. And they're not finished products. Now, you can bring in guys like Will Anderson, and you can bring in guys like Kamari Lassiter and CJ Stroud that are wise beyond their years and already act like ultimate professionals. But what about guys who might not be mature? Confession. Watch this. This was a Walter Nolen motivated question. A top 5 talent who could fall to 25, quite frankly, based on talent, has no business falling to 25. But that scenario has been thrown out there. And if the Texans are not willing and they don't feel confident that their culture can develop the right kind of guys, and I think they're kind of handcuffing themselves. And I think that this superpower that they say exists, I think it's kind of minimized, because if you're bringing in guys that are already ready to go and already your kind of guys, then what is the real value of that? I think this answer from DeMeco Ryans will please many people, but I asked him about this, and this is what DeMeco had to say.
That a lot of the kids that you're talking to are younger and they're not fully developed. Is there any development in when you talk to them? They might not be what you completely want right now, but they can develop into that.
The one thing I always tell my coaches is we're here for a reason. We're coaches, right? You're here to teach. You're here to develop and grow young men, and that's our job, and something we should all take pride in. You don't want a finished product. No one's a finished product. A lot of the guys we're talking to are 21 years old. Where were we when we were all 21, right? We've all grown a lot since being 21, right? In a lot of different areas. And it's the same thing, the same mindset and approach you take when you're drafting a young guy. How are you going to help? Where of course he has the talent. He wouldn't be getting drafted if he didn't have the talent. He has that talent. So now what are you doing as a coach, as a teacher, to enhance his skill set, make him better, give him more tools to work with, put in his tool belt so he can become better as a player, but also as a man off the field. And that's where coaches really shine. The coaches who can develop guys and help them maximize their potential, those are the coaches who are really great, and they stick around the league for a long time.
And I think that's encouraging to hear from DeMeco Ryans, that it's not a finished 100% product when you're looking at these guys. And I do wonder if guys like Walter Nolen could come into this situation and work. And Jason Bristol of KHOU asked the question afterwards, which I thought was what we talked about here and what we talked about there. And he got a good answer. Can the swarm mentality be developed? Which we asked. And DeMeco Ryans basically seemed open to any sort of flaw and any sort of question mark involving a prospect. But there was one deal breaker that DeMeco Ryans had that I think could eliminate some guys from consideration for the Texans. And he basically said, you know, we talked to guys. Our main goal is to find out if these guys love football. And the Tet McMillan conversation has been something that we've talked about quite often. But DeMeco Ryans said he wants guys who love football. He can work with anything else, but you got to love football. It's very important here. When the McMillan stuff was coming out, there were some people that were saying, well, it doesn't matter if he loves football. I've known a lot of guys who haven't loved football and blah, blah, blah. Okay, the DeMeco Ryans doesn't, and Nick Caserio don't necessarily subscribe to that theory. So you can maybe mark those guys off. The Walter Nolen thing, maybe it's a possibility. Don't know if he gets to 25, but I do think that would be something that DeMeco Ryan would be willing to work with. Going to the super chat, Jonathan has a question on the soup. You ain't never hate. Swarm. And we're going Scott Hall stick mic today. So we're trying to get the stick mic loose. The super stream probably going to rotate between mics. So we're going a little wrestling mic today. Hey, yo. Jonathan on the soup. Landry, do you see this possibly being a CJ Anderson type of draft? They take Booker or Egbuka, then trade up to the end of the first or top of the second to get the other. This is interesting. So you're basically saying where you take CJ at 2 and then you use 12 to trade up to 3 and you get both of the guys that are connected. And speaking of these guys, I asked CJ about Egbuka and I asked Will Anderson about Booker. One gave a real strong endorsement. One gave one that a lot of people had a lot of opinions on. We'll get to that a little later on in the show. But I don't know. The thing about the CJ and the Anderson thing is you had an overwhelming amount of extra ammunition. You had the 3 1s from Cleveland. So you traded the remaining 2 extra 1s to go up and get Will Anderson on top of some other stuff. And you were talking about guys that were probably number 1 and number 2 on their draft boards, or number 1 and number 3, depending if you believe that they like Bryce Young the most at quarterback. But 2 guys that they considered top 3 guys, and that there was like a clear discussion about those guys. Now, there's obviously going to be discussions within the organization, and I appreciate you, Jonathan. There's going to be discussions in the organization, I'm sure, for between Booker and Egbuka in that situation. But is it so much of a split that you want to trade up? I think maybe you would have to see Booker fall into the second round, which could happen, could very well happen. But I also don't know how much they like Egbuka. So it would be interesting to see which one they took first. I think in a situation where you're trying to get both, you probably take the receiver off the board, because the price of drafting up, it is a thing. It does exist. But I don't know that they're going to be as desperate and love these guys as much to where they're going to want to do that. But who knows? Maybe they do love both of those guys as much. I would find it hard to believe that they would be in that situation, but never say never. And they do have a few extra picks. So appreciate you, Jonathan, for asking that. Monteano Aaron on the chat asks or says, I don't know what we're doing for the draft. Nobody does. They don't know. They got 24 picks they got to wait. So they have no idea either. It's not in their control. But he says, I really want Egbuka at 25, but if that doesn't happen, we better get the best tackle on the board 100. Taking the best tackle on the board, I think, is dangerous, especially if Banks is gone. And I just don't see any way that Banks is there at 25, despite all this talk. If he is, I think you take him because I think he's a better guard. I think he would already be a better guard than Booker. And I think there's a chance he's going to be a damn good tackle and make a lot of people look stupid. But if that's a big if he's there. As far as Egbuka goes, I asked CJ about him. Here's what CJ said. A lot of people had some interesting theories on it. I didn't read as much into it as a lot of people, but this is what CJ said about Egbuka, his former Ohio State teammate.
Mentoring guys that like from Alabama going into the draft. Is that something that you like doing? There's a lot of Ohio State guys, obviously, and Emeka Egbuka at the Combine had some good things to say about you. What is y'all's relationship like?
Yeah, me and Mac, we were very close at O State, and as just time goes on, you stay connected, but it's just different, not being in the same building and stuff. But man, he can call me anytime. That's my brother for life, and I'm super proud of him, just the man he's become, the man of God first and foremost, and just that leadership that he's brought. And I remember him being like this #1 recruiting receiver coming into our school, and and he came in with just wanting to work. And so I know that he'll do the same thing, coming to the league, and he's going to have no problem adjusting. I think he's going to be a long-time vet, just somebody who's going to make a lot of plays, reliable, going to block, going to do everything that you ask him to do. But first, he's going to be a leader. And I'm just excited to see, him work out, and G. Scott and Trey, all those guys, JT, Jack, all those guys I was there with, to see them, turning the corner on their college careers. And we're developed there. We're bred there. They teach us a bunch. They're hard on us. The main thing that I remember is just Coach Mick, just being super hard on us in the weight room. But it all pays off in the end. And the same skills that they use at school, like Mick and all those boys, they'll use it in the league, and they'll have no problem.
All right, so that's his breakdown of Egbuka. I mean, it just sounded like a solid role player. I think it's kind of how people feel about him. I don't think anyone thinks he's like a significant impact type of guy. Just a solid football player that, there's a big difference. I will say this. Big difference between the way CJ Stroud talks about Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, and Chris Olave than Egbuka. And no kidding, because those guys were better players, more productive, and they were drafted higher. But there's definitely a big difference in the manner in which he kind of breaks that down. So that was CJ on Egbuka. I didn't expect him. Someone on Twitter, I think it was Mr. Optimistic, he said he didn't really pound the table for him. It would be pointless to pound the table for someone that you don't necessarily control whether or not you get them. Although I say that, but earlier in that media availability, I asked Will Anderson about Tyler Booker. He might not have been pounding the table, but he was pretty damn close.
You've been kind of the face of it. At the Combine, Tyler Booker mentioned you as like one of like his mentors.
Yeah.
What's your relationship like with him? And what's it kind of like being kind of like an OG to guys coming into the league now?
Yeah, I was telling my coach today, I was like, please don't let me be the youngest guy in the room for the 3rd year in a row, man. Tyler Booker, man, I speak very highly of him, man. Great character guy, but I think he has all the attributes you need to play the offensive line position. He's a mauler. He loves to finish blocks. His leadership skills, his mentality. He wants to be the best, and he's really hard on himself. And, I'm kind of the same way. And that's what builds you up. That's what makes you know who you are. And he has all those things, man. And I can't say enough good things about him, man. And wherever he end up, he's going to change that team, change that program, and change the offensive line for sure.
So there you go. I mean, that's a hell of an endorsement. That's kind of what we've been talking about. We've called Tyler Booker the offensive version of Will Anderson, and Will Anderson basically says as much, and he seems to have some really, really strong feelings for Tyler Booker. And I don't know how much weight that holds, especially like given the fact that we don't know the dynamic of the offense. We don't know what they're going to be asked to do in the offense. We don't know how much say Nick Caley really has in what they do or don't do. But if we're just to talk about the coach, who we'll hear from in a second, DeMeco Ryans, I do think Will Anderson's opinion matters. He's kind of the face of the swarm. Like, Will Anderson is the face of the swarm. Everybody says it and everybody knows it, and it's very common. And that's why they wanted to give up so much to get him in the first place. He's kind of that guy. So when a guy is talent-wise already kind of considered that, like, it's not like we're sitting here saying, well, Tyler Booker's a 5th-round pick. Some people might be, but I think for the most part, like the media scouts and the real scouts, it feels like Tyler Booker is right there in that late first, early second type of range as a prospect. So if he's already there, if offensive line's already in need, and if Will Anderson is endorsing you like that, I mean, I think it does matter a little bit. I think it holds weight. Is it some sort of significant tiebreaker? Like if they absolutely think that Nolen is like a top 3 talent and they have Booker like 15 or 16 on their board, does that mean that they go with Booker over Nolen? I would hope not, because that's what they say that they don't do. And I think it's not just about the fact that they say it, it's the fact that I think that's the right mindset. If you can get a top 5 talent, I know the defense is the defense, then you go there. I don't think we should take the culture and put it 12 spots ahead based on a board. But I do feel that that there is some value in Tyler Booker, especially when it comes to DeMeco Ryans, Nick Caserio, and what they like. So do with that what we will. There's a lot. Hell, he might be gone before they draft. You never know. 24 is a lot. A lot of stuff can happen at 24. And here's another thing. Everybody else knows what the Texans need and want. Everybody else knows these connections. So if someone likes Tyler Booker, like let's say there's a team in the top 10 that's at the front of the second round and they want to trade up to the first, and maybe they want to give up their second and third to go get Tyler Booker, they can do that because Minnesota is begging to trade. I mean, you have a lot of teams lurking. So that's the other thing that you got to be concerned about. I think the nightmare situation is Kelvin Banks somehow falls, and then all of a sudden Kansas City says, you know what? We got our ass roughed up in the Super Bowl by the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go up there and trade in front of the Texans, and let's get the top offensive lineman that they have on their board, because we know they need offensive line. We played against them, and we had their quarterback on his ass injured. You think the Chiefs don't know that the Texans need offensive line on top of themselves? They know that, and they're looking to trade up. That's one of the worst kept secrets heading into this draft. Or what if Nolen's not taken? And the Philadelphia Eagles, who have already shown that defense wins championships, the D-line's getting a little bit older, still got a lot of talent. What if Walter Nolen is there and the Eagles decide, hey, you know what? We're going to hop Caserio, Minnesota, here, we'll trade you whatever. And we're going to add Walter Nolen, and we're going to add him with Jalen Carter. Well, shit. It's not a fun place to be with Minnesota. And in that scenario, maybe the Texans give up one of their extra 3s or something like that. I know it sounds crazy to trade up one spot, but you're in a weird spot. It's not ideal. It's not a good place to be. You're basically behind the fat guy at the buffet with the Minnesota Vikings. You're behind the fat guy at the buffet. And the fat guy at the buffet is on his first plate. He's got those spandex sweatpants on. He looks like he's about to work up a sweat because he's getting so pumped. And there's only 3 pieces of sausage and pepperoni pizza in front of you. You got to get over him. You got to line skip. You got to be slick with it. Maybe it's when he's grabbing his fork. You got to line skip. Now, you don't want too much smoke. You got to be subtle with it. And you just got to get over it. Maybe take one piece of that sausage pepperoni, leave him one, or take 2, 1. Who knows? Depending on how bold you are. It's a tough spot to be, though, with Minnesota. The fat ass is in front of you at the buffet. Mark Seahorn on the soup. Me amigo. Mark, happy draft week to you.
Swarm.
Says with DeMeco's pass with the 49ers and the way the Eagles dominated KC up front, I see the Texans going D in the first and will look to add interior offensive line day 2. Plan on running the ball and with a stout D. Less drop backs for CJ is a great way to protect him as well. Mark, appreciate you. I think you're kind of saying what I touched on earlier leading up to this process. And I think this is a really astute point by you. Now, I don't know that they go defense. I do think that Walter Nolen is going to make them think. And I don't know. I think this is going to be an offensive draft because I think they already feel they have an elite defense. But if Nolen is there, let's just say for the sake of this, like, and what you're saying is, hell, maybe they like some other guys. I know Campbell was mentioned by Will Anderson as well. Let's just pretend in this world. All right, they think Walter Nolen is the best defensive lineman, and they have Campbell. Let's say he falls. Campbell is the top linebacker. The people who are against this are going to say, and I'm not dismissing it, I'm just saying what they're going to say. They're going to say, well, you got to focus on offense in the draft. And to a certain point, I agree. Although, as I've always said, drafts, they're restaurants, they're not Amazon. You can't just get everything you want. It's different each year. So, with that said, if you already have a good defense and you make a defense elite, that can be a quarterback's best friend. You're not adding an offensive lineman just to add an offensive lineman. You're not adding a receiver just to add a receiver. And I would assume, Mark, if Brian Thomas was there, I don't think you would be saying this. So I think you probably have like the fluid mindset of what is based on what's available, and basically an adjustment or a pivot to what the draft offers. So you've seen teams rely on their defense to win Super Bowls. Is it ideal? No. But the draft is not always laid out ideal. So when we talk about helping CJ Stroud, obviously the coaching is going to have to improve on the offensive side of the rock. But an elite defense can help you a lot more than some mediocre ass offensive lineman or wide receiver just putting them out there on offense. So if they want to take Nolen, or if they are just incredibly in love with Campbell, which I think is kind of a long shot, have at it. I think Nolen is the one defensive guy that I'm very open to. I don't know that he's there, and I don't know that Banks is there. Those are the two guys that I don't know whether or not they go there. But I think that a good defense and an elite defense can help a quarterback as much as anything. I think they can. Trey says wide receivers don't have to get open when the no line play Ole like they were bullfighting all season. Yeah, I mean, both positions were a little bit off. But who knows how that goes. There is a trade I do think that the Texans should consider that I'll get into in a second. But here's the final thing, and this was a mystery that kind of emerged, and people were asking about this, and I think we've solved this mystery. Today, there was kind of a funny moment, a couple of funny moments with Cole Thompson. Cole actually called DeMeco Nick, which was funny. DeMeco had some fun with that. But he also asked Will Anderson about EJ Speed, and there was an interesting reaction from Will Anderson that had some people online talking. I think we might have an idea about the mystery. Here was what Will Anderson said, and this was a piggyback on talk about CJ Gardner-Johnson and what it's like having him in the building, how competitive he is, and how he brings the juice. This was a funny moment with Will Anderson. I think we've solved this mystery.
In the building, you've been.
That was the Booker, but here is this.
For the last several years on the opposing side, but what does EJ Speed bring to the second level of this defense?
Yeah, he brings, like you said, everything. Yeah, great.
So All right. So a lot of people were like reading into
The last
this.
several years on the opposing side, but what does EJ Speed bring to the second level of this defense?
Yeah, he brings, like you said, everything. Yeah, great player.
All right, so here's my theory on that. And Mark was talking about the way the draft is laid out. So he knows that we're at a restaurant. We're not at Amazon. We can't just say awesome wide receiver, awesome offensive lineman. So, Mark, you're on top of it. Hope you'll be joining us on Saturday, 11 o'clock, Karbach Biergarten. We're getting some stuff put together for that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a celebration of the hard work that's gone into the draft and you, the people who make it possible. So, if you want some buddies to watch the draft with, what better guys than myself and Cody Stutes out there at Karbach Biergarten, pizza and pints. And that's on the aftermath of the super streams. So I think that what happened there was these are, and immediately the theories were flying all around the place. Oh, EJ Speed, he's talked all that crap about the Texans. Will Anderson wants nothing to do with EJ Speed. And oh, what is he? What is it? Does he not know who he is or whatever? So voluntary workouts are kind of and I could be wrong on this. But voluntary workouts are kind of, there's a lot of rules. Like the coaches can't go on the field with you. There's like all types of crazy rules. The Texans have very high attendance when it comes to voluntary. And while they do extremely praise guys who are there, it's not overly aggressive. And they don't tell you that you have to be there because that's a violation of the negotiations that the players and coaches / ownership or whatever agreed to. So they don't do that. But I don't think EJ Speed was there. So I would assume that Will Anderson just thought that he couldn't mention EJ because he wasn't there with the other guys. So it got kind of awkward for him. And because there are rules, I think maybe Will Anderson thought he wasn't allowed to bring it up. And the other thing is, like, why are we talking about EJ Speed? I mean, it's draft time. We haven't talked to Will. But that would be my theory, is that he wasn't there. So that was why Will Anderson was a little bit confused as to whether or not he could say that. Chris says that he thought Will was going to say EJ brings great podcasting to the Texans. Man, people in Indianapolis hated that podcast. Like, they made fun of it. I heard the media making fun of it, but it got made fun of a lot. I don't know if EJ's still doing his podcast. I would assume he is. I don't think they would stop, but I don't know. But I think that's what happened. Yes, he was a trash talker. That is a fact. I think that's why people kind of got a little bit excited about the smack talk. But I think it's as simple as Will is a rule follower, and he thought that he would be breaking some type of rule if he talked about his if he talked about him. So that's really all I think that was. I don't think it's anything there, but I mean, it was weird. I didn't know what was going on. I thought it was weird, but that was the mystery. And that was Cody Stutes actually threw that theory out earlier today. I'm pulling up something because I'm trying to bring up a connection to Will Anderson that I think may matter a little bit. And let me pause this real quick. Okay. Because I started thinking about the draft. I started reading kind of the rumor wire. I know we're getting a lot of draft stuff, and I'm really open to this trade. And I made a video about it earlier today. But one of the names that's being thrown out there as a possible player that could be traded is Jameson Williams in Detroit. And some people may say, well, why would the Lions trade Jameson Williams? Why would they do that? And the answer is kind of the same reason why the Texans would trade Laremy Tunsil, because eventually you're going to have to pay guys. You get off to the fast track and try to figure some other stuff out, and you kind of just got to move on. And I also think that Ben Johnson was kind of a guy who added value for Jameson Williams. He seemed to kind of have a soft spot for him, and he's no longer there. He's in Chicago. So you don't know how it's going to work and how it's going to look. And eventually you're going to have to make those tough decisions. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're going to have to pay Hutchinson. You got elite talent. You're going to have to pay Laporta. You're going to have to pay Gibbs. So he's probably lower on the pecking order than both of those guys. And that's on top of all the other stuff. Like, good teams have to say goodbye to good players all the time. It happens. And the deadline for fifth-year options is May the 1st. So crazier things have happened than Jameson Williams being traded. And Albert Breer mentioned this, and quite frankly, it makes a lot of sense. I was trying to make sense of why Detroit's visiting with so many receivers. This may be it. Jameson Williams is coming off a 1,000-yard season. He's very explosive, and he's not better than Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they got some other things going on and some other bills due. And rather than just sit around in a lame duck situation, you move on, you figure it out, and you try to do what you've done a really good job of, which is stockpiling talent. So they say goodbye, and they don't make the long-term investment. So that would be the point of view from Detroit, which we see every year in the NFL, that point of view. Now, why would this make sense with the Texans? I laid out 5 reasons, and basically I think the fact that they need a wide receiver, we know that. The fact that this draft does not have a ton of receivers at the top, we know that. The fact that you don't have to pay him right now. We've seen them rent Stephon Diggs for a higher price than it would take. And I don't know if it's a third. I don't know if it's a second. I don't know if it's some flip, whatever. You're not trading a first-round pick, and you might not have to trade a second for Jameson Williams. So if it doesn't go right, then, oh, well, you figured that out. But the other thing is there's also a fit where he's a guy who lines up all over the place. We've talked about them being able to play multiple slots. We've talked about them really needing explosiveness. Jameson Williams is one of the most explosive players in the NFL right now. The most explosive guys in the NFL. You put him with Christian Kirk, with Nico Collins, all of a sudden you're cooking. So let's say that you get your first-round pick and then you trade to get Jameson Williams. I think you would be satisfied with what's gone on early in the draft, and you're not going to get a player like that. This was from Info Solutions last season. Williams lined up 20% in the right slot, 20% outside of the right, 20%, over 20% in the left slot, over 20% outside to the left. So they talk about flexibility. They talk about moving around. He's one of those guys, and it makes sense. Some people will say, well, Jameson Williams, he's had some off-field run-ins, and he's found his way into trouble, and he's a little bit of a knucklehead. Okay, let's take a closer look at what's happened with Jameson Williams and how the Texans may or may not handle those situations. Okay. Number one, he was in the gambling reign or whatever it was, where a bunch of NFL players gambled and they ended up getting in trouble. Texans have already brought in someone that was in that whatever the hell, I forgot what that guy's name was, whatever the Colts receiver was that was at camp, they brought his ass in. So they've already shown that they don't care about that. Other thing that he got in trouble for was the substance abuse policy or whatever. And it looked like, based on the description, similar to what DeMeco Ryans got in trouble with. So they've already looked past that with Jameson Williams. Other thing is just the connections to Nick Caserio. I don't care what they say. I've said this since the day that the day after it happened. I believe in 2022, when the Texans were sitting at the 13th overall, with the 13th overall pick in the draft, I believe that they liked Jameson Williams, and I believe that they wanted Jameson Williams. You can't convince me otherwise. And Guess who was sitting at number 12 when the Texans were sitting at 13? It was the Detroit Lions. And the Detroit Lions took Jameson Williams, and the Texans traded back a couple of times. Almost as if they were just reacting and deciding to trade back. I think that they like Jameson Williams. They're never going to convince me otherwise. So there's that connection. And maybe that connection has more to do with my opinion as opposed to like a fact. So this is locker room, Landry Locker, fantasy world, however you want to look at it. But that's just my take on it. The other thing about it is when it comes to the connections is Nick Caley and his offense. We've heard what Nick Caserio says they want. Jameson Williams fits that. So he fits that. So from a cost standpoint, from a need standpoint, from a fit standpoint, Jameson Williams fits that. They need speed as well. The other thing that I think kind of matters, and maybe this doesn't matter, but the last time Nick Caley saw Jameson Williams, I think he had 140 yards on 5 catches. When the Lions took on the Rams, let's get those numbers correct. The game log of Jameson Williams last year. So he had, against the Rams, 5 catches for 121 and a tutty, long of 52. So Nick Caley has a recent history of watching him do his thing. So there's that. Other thing is there's kind of a reference point. There's kind of a reference point of Jameson Williams. He was teammates with C.J. Stroud at Ohio State. Now, this was before C.J. really played, but he was there. And when C.J. was the starter at Ohio State, he ended up transferring to Alabama. And you can see him right there. Look at that guy to his left, our right. That is Will Anderson, who we just heard from. So he has a history with Will Anderson at Alabama and with C.J. Stroud. Look, if Jameson Williams is available for trade like Albert Breer says he may be, and like we see damn near every year in the NFL, make the move. Like, I don't think that's a hard thing to consider. Like, if it's not like Detroit doesn't think he's good. They're just having to do what other teams have to do, which is make tough decisions. So if you can make that happen and you can go get Jameson Williams with the extra draft picks that you have, go do it. 100% go do it. I think it's a no-brainer for the Texans to do that. Or at least consider it and look into it. I mean, they have all the resources and all the reasons to do it. So really just check it out and look into it, because Jameson Williams is better than any receiver in this draft. And unlike Stephon Diggs, if 1 year doesn't go right, the cost isn't as high. And if it does go right, then you have a very, 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 very good receiving group with Williams, Nico, and then whatever the hell you want to do with Christian Kirk. Quite frankly, if Jameson Williams does what Jameson Williams is capable of, Christian Kirk can be the 1 year rental. That was a 6th-round pick. Captain Kirk can lift off after 1 year.
Captain Kirk has arrived. I repeat, Captain Kirk has arrived.
You can arrive and leave if Jameson Williams does what Jameson Williams can do. So if the Lions are willing to make that move, pick up the damn phone and draft something else in the 1st round. Figure something else out. Because that is an exciting player, and that is a player that can make you immediately better. I mean, just imagine how different we're talking about this wide receiving group if Jameson Williams is paired with Nico Collins. Scary possibility. Best football likely ahead. Now, another question that I think is fair is, well, who's even in the mix for Jameson Williams if he's on the market? Probably a lot of teams, quite frankly. I mean, I would think I don't see why I don't see why some of these contending teams would be on board. But the team that I think would most aggressively want Jameson Williams would be a team that we've seen aggressive for a while and an OC that has a history with them. And that's Ben Johnson with the Bears. But why in the F would the Lions trade with the Bears? I've rolled my eyes at trading within division to a certain point, but you're telling me your OC is going to go to a division rival that's being aggressive right now, and you're going to trade Jameson Williams to the Bears? Yeah, that would not happen. So I don't know who else would be in your way, but I mean, if you have to go day 2 and give up some stuff in day 2 and maybe even day 3 and maybe something next year, whatever, figure it out. You got the extra picks. And that's when you start looking at the Laramie Tunsil trade and saying, oh, they traded Laramie Tunsil for a second and Jameson Williams. I don't think too many people would be upset with that. If it's a rental, so be it. Because there is some high upside there with Jameson Williams. And you just imagine Jameson Williams, Nico, Christian Kirk, whatever the hell else you have. If he's on the market, they need to be involved. Unless they just don't like what he brings from a makeup standpoint, which could very well be the case. But they also got the best resources possible to look into that. So they could figure something out. I think C.J. Gardner-Johnson even knows him a little bit. So if Jameson's out there, consider it. Yeah, Jameson was at Ohio State with CJ for a year. I said this earlier. Yeah, he was at Ohio State with CJ for 1 year, I think. He didn't play a ton, and then he ended up going to Alabama. But he was actually in the receiver room when Egbuka first got there. So I don't know how late he went into the portal or if Egbuka graduated early or something like that. But Egbuka said that Jameson was in there. So yeah, he was at Ohio State with CJ. Yes, we did talk about that. And then with Will, we just put up the picture of Jameson and Will. Sign me up for it. I'm here for that. And I don't know that the price, I don't even think it's a second, but figure it out. That's the most exciting possibility for me on top of the Kelvin Banks. I think the Kelvin Banks thing is crazy that he's falling. I think he's falling. And Daniel Jeremiah, who put out his top 150 prospects, Daniel Jeremiah says that he has heard that the Texans will not pass on Kelvin Banks. And this is his scouting report of Banks. I'll pull up Jeremiah's top 150, which is as good as it gets. But he says Banks is a thick, sturdy left tackle in pass protection. He launches out of his stance, shows the ability to sink and bend his knees. He keeps his hands inside and is patient with his punch when he struggles because he sets up too deep or his feet settle too early. Both those areas can be cleaned up in the run game. He has initial knockback power, but he doesn't always strain to drive finish. He is nimble to adjust and pick out defenders. I believe he can hold up a tackle. Overall, Banks has some things to clean up, but I like his core foundation and strength. So Jeremiah's saying that he thinks he can be a tackle, and he's putting him at 27. So instead of just saying he's a guard, Jeremiah's just basically saying that he just needs to clean up some stuff at tackle, and then maybe he'll get a little bit higher up. So I think it's interesting. He has Walter Nolen at 28. Let's hear what he has to say about Walter Nolen. He says Nolen's a twitchy defensive tackle who fits a penetration style defense. Ole Miss landed him quite often. And in his defensive scheme, he created some early wins versus pass rush. As a pass rusher, he can really get off the ball with urgency. He needs to improve his vision and awareness, though. He wins a lot of battles, blah, 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 blah. Against the run, he can generate negative plays, blah, blah, blah. Overall, Nolen is extremely talented and disruptive, but he hasn't come close to reaching his potential. Let me ask you this. This is a big sentence here. Overall, Nolen is extremely talented and disruptive, but he hasn't come close to reaching his full potential. Do you think the Texans' foundation that they talk about so much, do you think that that is a place where you can allow players to reach their full potential? Because that's what Jeremiah says. Let's go back to the DeMeco question I asked him about players being unfinished products. Let's hear that, and let's put this Daniel Jeremiah quote on the let's put this on the screen as DeMeco is answering this. And you tell me if you think that maybe they can get the most out of Walter Nolen. Let's hear DeMeco.
A lot of the kids that you're talking to are younger and they're not fully developed. Is there any like development in when you talk to them? They might not be what you completely want right now, but they can develop into that?
The one thing I always tell my coaches is we're here for a reason. We're coaches, right? You're here to teach. You're here to develop and grow young men. And that's our job and something we should all take pride in. Like, you don't want a finished product. No one's a finished product. A lot of the guys we're talking to are 21 years old. Where were we when we were all 21, right? We've all grown a lot since being 21, right? In a lot of different areas. And it's the same thing, the same mindset and approach you take when you're drafting a young guy. How are you going to help? You know, where of course he has the talent. He wouldn't be getting drafted if he didn't have the talent. He has that talent. So now what are you doing as a coach, as a teacher to enhance his skill set, make him better, give him more tools to work with, put in his tool belt so he can become better as a player, but also as a man off the field. And that's where coaches really shine. The coaches who can develop guys and help them maximize their potential, those are the coaches who are really great and they stick around the league for a long time.
All right, there you go. So he said that. And then listen to the final sentence of Daniel Jeremiah. And we mentioned Daniel Jeremiah because we respect the hell out of his work. And by we, I mean me. I think most people do. But look at that final sentence. If he lands with the right scheme coach, he could emerge as one of the better players in this draft class. Top 5 talent. Unrealized potential. DeMeco says tap that potential. I mean, but between Banks and Nolen, like if the board goes the way that Jeremiah has it lined up, those are the 2 best options for me at this point. Now that everything is shaped up, we've talked about receivers. I still think the offense is a problem, but if you're at 25 and you get a top 5 defensive player and that top 5 player in the draft, has that secondary behind him and those edge guys on each side, that's helping CJ as much as just drafting an offensive lineman just to draft an offensive lineman. That's helping him as much as Tyler Booker. Is it helping him as much as Banks? Maybe not, because I think Banks is better. I don't think Banks is going to be there. But if that happens, then that's the case. Let's see what else Jeremiah has. I haven't looked at this list. So he has Zabel up there at 26. Might make a lot of the guard mafia happy about that. Malachi Starks, Texans aren't taking him. Harmon, wouldn't count on it. Stewart, God, if they take another edge guy, no. Williams. And then a lot of these guys aren't really linked. He has Booker at 17. So if you're a Booker guy and you think Booker can fall, then Daniel Jeremiah has him at 17. He has our guy Omarion Hampton at 13. And then Campbell at 11. So let's see where he has Egbuka, since that's another name that we talk a lot about. So we're having to go down for Egbuka. Did I miss it? He's got Burden at 35. He's got Judkins. Maybe I missed Egbuka. Yeah, I had to have, right? Yeah, okay. I had to have missed Egbuka on this. Does he have Egbuka high? Okay, we might be figuring out Daniel Jeremiah likes 9. I'm not seeing Egbuka. How far down we got to go for him? I'm fascinated by this. Oh, there we go. 18. So I passed over him. Okay, so he likes Egbuka all right. He throws him in the lump of Jackson Smith and Jigba. If he's as good as Jackson Smith and Jigba, then if he's at 25, then that would change a lot of things. I don't know that that's the case. I don't know that the Texans think that's the case. But he has him ahead of McMillan, which is also interesting. I think if McMillan, there's talk that he doesn't like football from early, and there's talk now that Bruce Feldman is kind of thrown out there. So DeMeco Ryans is not going to – he doesn't want guys who don't like football. You can cross that off the list. But Jeremiah's list creates whole new conversation. So he has Egbuka at 18. There we go. Passed over that.
High-grade marijuana called Kush on the streets.
Brandon, I brought this up earlier. Titus was looking huge walking in the facility. Titus looks like he's in shape. It looks like a guy who knows that his job's on the line. He looks like he's in better shape than he was last year. Looks a little jacked. Titus looks like he's in shape. It's not just you. It's me as well. I agree. An interior D lineman would be scary for DeMeco Ryans. That's what Francisco says. Have I seen Joe Klatt's mock draft? No. I think Joe Klatt's the best analyst in college football. I enjoy him and Gus very much. I do not really like his draft stuff. Just not really into him. On the chat, Kay Hogan asked this. Landry, are you going to do a straight eye for the football guy like makeover for Stutes so he doesn't get roasted on social media for his wardrobe choices? Is he getting roasted? I mean, I'm not like a stylish guy, so I don't know. I don't know. What is he? What's the criticism? The way that the jacket was being rocked or what? I didn't see it. Someone brought it up today in the chat, and I was getting cussed out for it. Story of my life. Like someone brings it up, and then Cody gets mad at me for his wardrobe choice. I want to see how bad was it. Check this out. I haven't really broken it down. Let's check out the Cody wardrobe. Those of you, I put it in the post section. We were on KHOU, talking draft on CBS. Let's see. I don't think he looks too bad, does he? He's looking all right. I mean, I don't think I should be giving wardrobe advice. I don't think I look that sharp. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I was going to nitpick, nah, we won't do that. I won't do that. Nah, we don't got to do that. That's my teammate. Now, let's be serious though. Are those black pants in a brown jacket? Is that what he's wearing, or is it gray or what? I didn't really notice that. Is that what he's looking like? I feel like he's pulling it off though. I feel like Cody with his personality can kind of pull it off. But I don't know, man. Those do look like black pants, and that does look like kind of a brown jacket. I know you're not supposed to wear a black belt with brown shoes, vice versa. I don't know what it works with the jacket. I'm not sure. I think he looks all right, though. So, no, I'm not going to give him no straight eye for the football guy. Someone says it was the black pants. Chill Out says, with that blazer, just change the color of the slacks. Okay, so he needed different colored slacks. Killa X God says he's taking Cody to Men's Warehouse. Chris, taking it to a whole nother level. He says, as a fellow fat dude, I can say with confidence, the issue is when he was on the stool, he had nothing to hide behind. I feel the pain. You talking about on the stool, it's just all out there? I feel that myself. But the mustache does make it work. You are right. The mustache kind of opens up the area. So I think the mustache does kind of help a little bit. But no, I didn't think he looked bad. Y'all are mean. Cedric says, and I love it, by the way. Cedric says sharps are saying. I don't know what does that mean? Sharps are saying, what does that mean? Sharps are saying we draft Loveland. Same guy predicted the Haley and Laramie move months before. Who's sharps? You said sharps are saying, like what sharps? Like smart guys? The Haley move, you mean the Caley move? I don't know. I don't know what sharps are saying means. I do know that 4-1 bet that I made on Ashton Genty being the number 5 overall pick at 8-1 has gone down to even money. So there's rumors that the Jags might be taking him. Maybe that means someone trades up to 4. Don't know, but it looks like I might have a solid bet on my hand. I told all you people to do it too on S&L. Stutes didn't do it. Roto says Banks news is typical draft stuff. Someone trying to push him down the board. I don't know what that means. When Daniel Jeremiah has him ranked 27th, I don't think Daniel Jeremiah is trying to get him down the board. I don't think that's the case. I think teams are maybe overthinking it. Not sure, but if he's there, got to consider it. If Nolan's there, got to consider this. This is starting to really pick up, starting to get real. We got 3 sleeps till the draft. So tomorrow, the Texans are going to make 3 players available to the media. Y'all just tell me, who would y'all want to hear from? Like if from a fan perspective. And let's consider the fact that they are one of the teams that doesn't do free agency press conferences. So they don't have like their new free agents really getting introduced. I don't think we met Diggs for like 4 months last year. It's crazy. But I guess I get it. Whatever. But who would you want to hear from? CJ Gardner-Johnson. Yeah, that's the most popular one right there. That's all I hear. CJG, CJGJ, CJGJ. Nope. Although I would like for him to join the stream. We're going to get him on the stream. He's not talking. You're going to hear from the new wide receiver.
Captain Kirk, can you save me? Captain Kirk, I want to have your baby.
Christian Kirk. You're going to hear from Jalen Petrie. And you're going to hear from Cam Robinson. So that is who we'll hear from tomorrow. What emerges from that, who knows? Maybe some interesting stuff from Christian Kirk. Cam Robinson. Probably just going to put his head down and go to work. And we always know Jalen Petrie, solid guy. Very popular around here. Swarm, mentality, all that. So I'm just as disappointed as y'all are that we're not getting the CJ Gardner-Johnson thing. But sometimes it just be like that. Sometimes it just be like that. Oh, all good. Draft week. Keep on trucking. S&L at 4:00. The full YouTube video is in the comments or the post section of S&L. Be with us for the super stream on day 1, day 2, and be with us for the party 11 a.m. the 26th. Pretty much all day from the 3rd round to the 7th at Pizza and Pints in the beer garden at Karbach. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. Be sure to ride along. And be sure to always remember when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Peace out.
Daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days. Opinions to give. We got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We number 1. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too.